Katie, let it out with Katie. Let it out with Katie Dalebout, enthusiast and curator of people and ideas you need to hear.
You guys, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Katie Dalebout, and I am your host of this podcast called Let It Out with me. And usually I have really long form conversations with creative people, interesting people, funny people, smart people. And today I'm not doing that. Today is one of the rare episodes where it's just me here and you. And I tell you the things that I've been loving lately and my favorites and things I'm really grateful for right now, because I think it's fun. I think it's fun to share what I'm into, and it spawns a conversation where you guys can tell me what you're into, and then we all just find more cool things. So that's what today's all about. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to get right into it. But first, let me thank the sponsor of this week's podcast. So my friend Gabby Bernstein has this program called Spirit Junkie Masterclass, and in it she helps to train people in what essentially she does. And I know there's a lot of people listening who might want to start a blog or start a podcast, or maybe they want to teach yoga or meditation, or they want to write a book. And Gabby's Spirit Junkie Masterclass is something that I did and helped me a lot. She's been a mentor of mine. She wrote the foreword to my book. She's been a mentor of mine since 2012. And her program, Spirit Junkie Masterclass, is something that I actually believe in and think is really great. So if you are interested and want to try it out, use the link in the show notes. Make sure you use that link, because that lets them know that I sent you. And it helps out the podcast, which is really great. So thank you so much to Gabby for creating that. And if that's something that interests you, I highly suggest checking that out. And another thing, about this podcast, it's a listener-supported podcast. So there's a PayPal thing on my website where you can make donations in whatever amount you want. Or you guys can just Venmo me, and that's a way that it goes right to the podcast, which is a great way to support the show if you wanted to do it that way. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say before I get into our favorites of the month. And let's just do that now. Okay, so I've got a couple different categories. I'm pretty excited. I feel like we haven't talked just us for a while. So hi, you guys. I've gotten to meet quite a few of you recently, which has been lovely. I was walking on the street the second day I was in New York, and Nick and I, my boyfriend, were walking to Washington Square Park to eat our Hugh Kitchen picnic, and this lovely girl came up and was like, "Hey, I recognized him from your stories." And we talked about how she listens to the podcast, and it was just lovely. And then I got to meet so many people that listen to the podcast at Wanderlust. I was just there this past week speaking. I gave 3 talks, and if you follow me on Instagram, maybe you saw some of them in my story, but it was so much fun. I talked about body image and journaling and food, and Wanderlust was lovely. I went with my friend Talia, and I drove from the city, and it was so great. Talia's been on the podcast, Party in My Plants, and Jess Mernan was also speaking, and I got to meet Nicole from Splendid Spoon, was my roommate while we were there, and Ruby Warrington of The Numinous, who's going to be a future podcast guest, was there, and my friend Jason Robel, who's been a podcast guest, and Shannon, who hosts the Soul Feed podcast. He was there, and I just had a lovely time. So thank you to everyone who was at Wanderlust who listens to the podcast and said hi, or if you didn't know who I was before Wanderlust and you're listening to this now, also hello. And if you had nothing to do with Wanderlust, hi. That was really fun. So I'm here. I'm in New York. I'm loving living in Brooklyn. And so I guess I'll start with food favorites, because I haven't been cooking. I haven't been shopping. I've just been taking in New York and loving it so much. So I thought I would shout out some of my favorite places so far in New York and put this out there that I can get some suggestions from you guys where I should go, what I should eat at each place, tell me all your thoughts and feelings on that. So I'll start with something that if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen this again and again and again, but I live right now where I'm staying for just a little while longer in Williamsburg, which I love. I'm right around the corner from this great cafe called The End, and it's the one you've maybe seen on Instagram. It kind of went viral because they created the unicorn latte, which is this really cool, healthy, fun drink that uses blue-green algae and lemon and really cool ingredients and coconut milk, and they even put sprinkles on the top, and it's fun and delightful, and I had it, and it was great, but it was one of those things that I was like, all right, cool. I would have wondered about this. I'm glad I had it, but I don't think I need to have it again. And Nick ordered a different drink when we were there together. He got this drink called the CBD Anxiety Clearing Latte, and it uses CBD oil, just like Charlotte's Web, past sponsor of the podcast, which I love. And it kind of tasted like a cold hot chocolate, and it uses a lot of adaptogenic herbs and cacao and coconut milk, and it was so good. I wanted to drink all of his, but I was stuck with my not stuck. The unicorn latte was good, but his was better. And so now every time I've been to The End, now I order that drink, the CBD latte, which I highly recommend. I actually just got one right before we recorded this, and it was delightful. So that's one place I love. I also am right around the corner from Shakti Bar right now. So I've been going there, and you might remember Corinne, past podcast guest, founder of Shakti Bar. They have great food and snacks there. And some of my other favorite places in the city, Butcher's Daughter, which I love, in Soho, always has great food. And I, of course, love Hugh Kitchen. I love their mash bar. That's always super fun. And what I've been loving, which I hadn't had until I moved here, was Press Juicery has their freeze, and I've always wanted to have it. My friend Amanda, who lives in LA, posts about it all the time, and they have their cold pressed juices in a freeze form. So they have strawberry, and they have like a green juice one and a matcha one and a vanilla and a chocolate, and then you can get like almond butter, peanut butter, and whatever toppings, and it's so good. So that's probably showed up in my story. It's in walking distance from where I am now, so I've been loving that. And I went to a cool restaurant in Brooklyn the other day. I'll remember what that is and find the link to that. But I also love Jack's Wife Frida, and I love Suin and Cafe Henry. Those are some of my favorite spots. I've heard of a lot more that I need to try that I haven't yet, like Dirt Candy and a couple others that I've been kind of dying to try. But those are the ones that I love and I've been having frequently right now, and I would love your suggestions while I'm here. So tell me where I need to go. Where do I need to eat? What museums do I need to go to? What do I need to see? Let me know. I'm new here, and I'm so far really, really liking it. Okay, so that's food so far. Now let's talk about podcasts. So I haven't been listening to nearly as many podcasts as I usually do because I've been around people and traveling with other people and doing road trips, but not alone. So I haven't really had too much time to listen to podcasts, and I have been walking a lot, but I've either been walking with people, so I've been chatting instead of listening to other people chat in my ears, or I've been like having to focus on navigating that I haven't been able to concentrate on a podcast, so I've just been listening to music instead. But I have, before I moved, I haven't done a favorites episode in so long that I have some podcasts that I have discovered that I've really been loving. So one of them is a new podcast, or at least new since the last favorites episode that I've done, and it's called Free Cookies, and it's hosted by Kate Fagan and Catherine Budig. And you may, if you're in kind of the wellness world, you may be familiar with Catherine Budig. She's a yoga teacher and someone I really admire. She wrote a book called Aim True that came out a couple years ago. And her partner, Kate Fagan, she is someone that comes from the sports world, and they host this podcast called Free Cookies, where they talk about pop culture and wellness and sports in this really fun, interesting way. They've had some guests that I've had on this podcast, like Emily Nolan, and they're just fun people to listen to. I like their relationship. I like their dynamic. They're really articulate and funny and smart, and I just think that everyone should listen to it. My friend Rose turned me on to it, as she does. She's turned me on to That's So Retrograde, and a lot of the podcasts I listen to regularly, she's turned me on to. She's fantastic. Check her out as well. But I really do love this podcast, and I look forward to it every Tuesday when it comes out. That's one that I would highly recommend. I've also been really liking listening to the Rookie podcast and some of my other staples like Pete Holmes' You Made It Weird and Alexi Wasser's podcast, and another newer one that I don't know if I think I have talked about it in a favorites episode, but the New York Times news podcast, The Daily, is one that I just think is fantastic. It's about 20 minutes a day, Monday through Friday, where the host, Michael Barbaro, goes through the top news stories of the day. Well, he doesn't go through the top news stories of the day. He actually does the opposite. He chooses one or two stories to really go in depth about, and then at the end he kind of tells you, here's what else you need to know today, and he gives you some other top line things to know. And it's been really helpful for me to feel educated in what's going on in the world in this really mindful way right now, which I think is really important. I highly recommend those, and free cookies, guys. It's so good. I want to have the hosts on my podcast. I've tried and they haven't gotten back to me, so tweet at them if you want to have them on the podcast. Maybe it'll happen. Reading. I haven't honestly been reading anything new recently because I've been moving and because things have just been really fast-paced over here. But I just had on Phoebe Lapine on my podcast like 10 seconds ago. She just left, actually. And her book, The Wellness Project, is something that I have and I'm so excited to read, and I highly recommend. I think everyone will really like it, and I just want to recommend that here. Okay, movies. Same thing. Unfortunately, haven't been watching a lot of movies, but instead, I thought I would tell you the movies I'm dying to see and I'm excited to see. So one of them is The Big Sick. That is Emily Gordon and Kumail's movie that they wrote about their relationship and their life. And Kumail is in it, and I can't wait to see this movie. I've been looking forward to it for maybe a year, months and months and months. And I think it just came out, or it's coming out this week. I'm planning on seeing it this weekend, and I can't wait. So that's one. And there's this other movie called Citizen Jane, Battle for the City. It's a documentary about Jane Jacobs, who's someone I learned about in college in a class that I took, a sociology class, and I love her. She was like my favorite figure that I learned about. And when I found out that there was a documentary about her, I am very much looking forward to seeing it. So hopefully by next time we talk, I have seen these movies and I love them as much as I'm anticipating I will love them, but I'll let you know. TV. Again, same as books and movies, I haven't had a lot of time to be watching a lot of new things, so I'm pretty behind in the TV that I would like to be watching and like to be consuming. But the second season of Master of None is out, and I loved the first season, and I started watching the first few episodes, and the show just really makes me happy. And I don't know, some people like it, some people don't. I love it. It makes me really happy. The music in it is really, really good. I find a lot of music I like through the soundtrack of Master of None, and I just enjoy it. It makes me happy. It makes me feel good. And it's also, they really go deep with some of the characters. There's good character development, and the topics that they cover I think are really great, and I just really like the show. Also, podcast producer and one of my favorite people, Amanda, suggested the show on HBO called High Maintenance, and it takes place in New York, which I love, and I watched a couple episodes with Nick recently, and we really liked it. It's really good, so that's a show that I want to watch more of and I like. Okay, so I have a couple other random kind of miscellaneous favorites. One of them is my backpack. It's a Fallraken Konken backpack. I know I'm not saying that right, but I think it's a Swedish brand, and I have the chartreuse color kids backpack, and it's really great for walking around in New York City. I get compliments about it all the time, and I just like it. So people have been asking about that, where I got it, and I'll put the link in the show notes. You can get it on Amazon. It's great. I also have the larger laptop one in pink, and I really like that one too. So music, in the category of music, what I've been listening to recently is girl pool because right before I left Detroit, I saw them on their tour when they came to Detroit, and it was so much fun. I had the best night. I had so much fun seeing them. I adore them. I loved their first album so much. It was so meaningful to me. Or I guess they've had 2 albums before their most recent one, but the one in the middle, that one I loved so much. Their song Before the World Was Big always makes me cry, and I just really enjoy it. And their new album I like a lot as well, and it was great to hear them perform live. They just seem like 2 really cool, interesting people I would love to have on the podcast someday and just know and be friends. They're so talented. They're so creative. They seem really down to earth and funny. They talked a lot between songs in their concert, which I loved, and it was just a really fun night. Also, Lord's new album has come out, and you guys probably saw on my Instagram, if you follow me there, that her song Green Light was one of my favorites this winter, and the whole album is just so good. I've been listening to it like nonstop since it came out, and I love it. I love Lorde. I think she is just such a cool person, and I love her new album. So give it a listen. Person this month, shout out to Talia, my friend who drove with me to Vermont this weekend. I had so much fun with you, Talia, if you're listening, and check out Party in My Plants. She's just a fun, good person I like a lot. Okay, skincare, I really like, genuinely. They are a sponsor of the podcast, but Nudo is so great. They have these really great products that you can actually tell are natural by the way they feel on your skin. And they have products that are specific to your skin type. No one size fits all. They're really great. They're made in small batches and they come in small bottles, so they're good for traveling. And again, since there's a sponsor, I'm going to give you the discount code, but it's 20% off with my discount code, which is Let It Out at checkout. So try them out. It's nudo.com, Nudu. The link is in the show notes. Use the code Let It Out to let them know I sent you, and because they're great, and you'll get 20% off, and they have a 100% money back guarantee. So if you don't like it, you can get your money back. So there's nothing to lose. That's one thing. And then the other thing that I love that also happens to be a sponsor is Care of Vitamins. And you've heard me talk about Care of several times on the podcast, but I actually ran into someone who works at Care of, and I talked to them in person here in New York, and it was so great. They're a small startup, and a lot of you guys were maybe telling me that you tried them, and they are a subscription service, so you can try for 50% off your first order and try them, and then they are a subscription service, so you can keep going with them or cancel or do whatever works for you. But just try them out and see how you feel after a month, because I found that they're really great for me. They come in these personalized containers that say my name. The packaging is on point, and the people that work there are great, and I really like Care of, and I'm so grateful that they're a sponsor of the podcast. So if you want to get your 50% off your first order, try it, do it. The code is my name, Katie, at checkout. So try Care of and see what you think. Let me know what you think. I think the coolest thing about Care of is that there's this quiz on their website that you take, and it asks you questions about your sleep and your diet and your lifestyle and your energy levels, and it curates a custom care package of vitamins for you, personalized for you, which I think is really important because there's so many vitamins and there's so many options, and these are the ones that really are curated for you. And I was, thinking honestly that I would just take that quiz and then go buy those vitamins myself. And I was thinking maybe I could get them for higher quality or cheaper if I just bought them myself. And I actually tried that and I couldn't. So I ended up spending more money, and it wasn't as easy, and the quality wasn't as good. So Care of sources the best quality for their supplements, and I just really like them. So try them out. Use the code Katie at checkout. And thank you so much to Care of and to Nudo. And again, I'm going to shout out Gabby's Spirit Junkie Masterclass. Thank you for sponsoring this episode. If you want to check it out, make sure you use the code the link in the show notes. And email me if you have any questions. I'll get back to you. So email me directly and let me know if you have questions about it. I did it so I can tell you from my experience. And I think that's really all I have to share this week. I feel like there was something else I was going to tell you about, but I think that's really it. I love you guys so much. I'm so grateful that you listen to this podcast. If you think it's funny, if you think it's helpful, if you have any feedback or help for me, let me know. And I'm just really grateful. I'll be back next week with full episodes. I have some really cool people coming on the podcast, and I've been recording a lot of episodes in person, which has been really fun. And I definitely want to do another live episode here in New York. I want to do a meetup. I would love your questions, so I can do another questions episode. Join the Facebook group. That's kind of the best way to get a hold of me with the questions and talk with each other. And anyway, thank you again so much for listening. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, one more thing. How could I forget the emoji for this week's episode? If you're still listening right now, it's the rainbow for Pride Month. I don't think I've used the rainbow before, and if I have, I'm using it again. So tweet at me the rainbow if you're still listening, and love you guys. Bye.